Hello there, my name is Chris England and I'm the Technical Development Manager on the MFG side here at Man and Machine. Today I'm going to be talking about the product design and manufacturing collection in general for our virtual summit. So a little bit about me, and here is my face and both my faces. So a little bit about me, I'm just been here at Man and Machine for 5 years, and I've been working with Autodesk software, I say 10 plus because I couldn't get to count over 10. And I'm an MFG application specialist, so unfortunately not the sharpest on the AEC side, but that's why I have all my wonderful colleagues that will be presenting to you tomorrow. And I guess if I'm going to have a slogan, I'm gonna leave it at do it once or automate it. And I'm into all things manufacturing, gaming, running, and most sport. But that's more than enough about me. So I guess I'm going to start with my game plan. So my game plan today is a what's new, but not really a what's new. It's going to be a bit more of an informative session where we're going to talk a bit more in depth about the product collection and what it is that it does for us. So I'm going to try and give us a bit of an explanation of what the products and where the products fit within the product collection, as well as, of course, a little bit of what's new, where it's relevant for some of the products. So the product design collection, as we see it, is a collection of products for manufacturing. So we can see all the little icons here, and it's a product focused. All these products are focused around product design and manufacture, as you would imagine. Pretty obvious. Well, the other thing that comes along with it is that most people only have the product collection because they wanted Inventor and maybe one other product, probably something like AutoCAD. And once they started looking at the difference in price between buying a single AutoCAD and a single Inventor, it made sense to buy the whole collection. So now we've got the whole collection. Why not understand some of the other products within it? And that's basically the game plan for today, or at least for my session today. So I guess my point at this stage is that we have we're using our product collection, which is a Ferrari, but we're basically just dressing it up over a Beetle, and that's not correct. We want to be utilizing the full beast. We want to get to using our whole collection and using it well, if and where we can, because each business is different, and I guess that's what I'm hoping to share a little bit and open a little bit of an opportunity for you to realize that perhaps one of the other products could help you with something you've maybe been struggling on, or considering other products that you may have to buy as a third party where you already have access to something within the Autodesk suite. So when we come to our design tools within the product design collection, we have Inventor at the forefront. Now, I believe Inventor to be the forefront, dependent on what kind of design you do. You may also have some other options in mind from that collection. You might be primarily designing in AutoCAD, and it might be AutoCAD electrical, mechanical, I guess architectural from the other sides, but that's not really our bag. But could be plant design, which is both, I guess, AEC and MFG. It could be a variety of products that you're designing in from an AutoCAD perspective. But for the most part, in our product collection, we see Inventor as the heart of the design and the heart of the collection, if we're being completely honest. And then we have some tools on the side that may aid those sort of workflows. So we have something called factory design utilities, where we can then both link up and have a bi-directional link between AutoCAD and Inventor. And in actual fact, we could add in Nastran into that sort of workflow. And with the factory utilities, we can then sync between each of the three products and sort of work between the three, which I suppose adds a whole nother level of complexity there. Now, factory design is, as it says on the tin, a factory design product, but not necessarily only used for factory design workflows. It can be used for other scenarios where, and normally based in larger layouts, but there are workflows and workarounds where we can sort of get to laying out other things. I suppose a kitchen would be a good example of something that we could lay out quite easily within factory design. But there's many examples as to where it could be handy. And it's a great layout tool for design. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't at least mention 3ds Max as a design tool, because it is indeed a design tool. But from a product collection point of view, I suppose technically we wouldn't really be designing in 3ds Max. You'd probably be pushing out our Inventor files into Max and maybe adding a little bit of extra CAD, perhaps a background or a bit of a scene or something to enhance our scene if we are going for a scene in terms of rendering. So yes, it would be construed as a design tool. And then we have Fusion, which creeps in, and of course Fusion being the newer player, and I'll just add in all the names in case the icons sort of elude you. But Fusion also comes in into the design tool and is a very capable design tool, of course. So those are our design tool options. And then when we start to look into things like our analysis tools within the product collection, we have, once again, for analysis, Inventor at the heart, because of course, whether we're using some of the tools within Inventor to perform analysis, i.e. like the FEA environment or stress analysis or dynamic simulation or frame analysis, and many of the calculators within the design tab, we have quite a lot of analysis tools within Inventor. And then we also have the extra add-on analysis tools, such as things like Inventor tolerance analysis or factory design, once again, as we can be doing things on our factory floor simulations and doing process analysis workflows to work out whether our floor is running as efficiently as we want. And then of course we have the additional Inventor Nastran, which is, I guess, an FEA package, which covers a lot of what the Inventor FEA environment covers, but of course has the solver of Nastran. And that's where I suppose the power comes in from that point of view, is the solver and I guess the workflows and the availability of more materials to be analyzed. We can do nonlinear in Nastran and etc. So there's quite a lot more within Nastran that we can do. And once again, Fusion comes in. So Fusion has quite a few simulation capabilities of its own. It can do things like generative design. It can do some thermal mechanical sort of stress analysis. It can do normal FEA modal analysis. So it has quite a few analysis tools built within Fusion as well. So once again, Fusion comes into the whole mix of things. So I promised a little bit of what's new. So here's the what's new in the Nastran side of things, since we've just covered the analysis part of my presentation. And when it comes to the Nastran what's new, it's not too many enhancements. I think a lot of background sort of algorithm enhancements are certainly there, as they're always improving on the Nastran engine. But of course, there are a couple little user improvements. Things like the right-click menu has now been separated so that we can expand all and collapse all items within both the analysis and the model tree separately, which is quite handy. Unfortunately, I have tested the drag and drop from the model and it still collapses the menu each time. So maybe Autodesk, if you don't mind, please, thank you. Either way, we then have the ability to now hover over connectors and the various connector types, and it will actually display properties and information about those connectors and what the inputs are from them. We also have a slightly enhanced mesh table, which will now display components listed within the assembly, or within, if it's an assembly. And we also have the new mesh troubleshooter, which should be quite handy in some of the peskier and trickier meshes and debunking and working out exactly what's gone wrong with our mesh when we have failures. So we have the new troubleshooter there too, which is quite handy. But that's about it for the Nastran 25 release. So we then get onto the tools for marketing. So within our tools for marketing, we have once again Inventor at the forefront. Now, Inventor is, of course, as I said, central to the PDMC, and in the case of marketing tools, it does have its own marketing tools within. We have things like the animation environment or presentation environment, rather than the animation environment. So the presentation environment, where we can create animations of things like exploded views or assembly little videos and animations, as well as we have the Inventor Studio, where we can go and create full-blown renders, and we can once again do video animations there. So quite a lot of capability within Inventor itself, and of course the model that we have within Inventor is the key to everything else. So we could then look into something or use add in the factory design utility workflows, where we could then push into Navisworks, for example, where we can then have Navisworks doing renders, animations, fly-throughs of our sites. Of course, the factory tools in itself could bring an AutoCAD layout, or using our factory library, we could have an AutoCAD layout come into the 3D world, which also helps us from a marketing point of view. 3D is obviously always going to look better than 2D. Presentationally speaking, drawing-wise, 2D is obviously still king. And then what I consider to be the heart of the PDMC's marketing tools is 3ds Max. Now, as we're going to see in a second when I get more into the 3ds Max's what's new, it is quite a beast and has quite a lot to it. But of course, it is a high-end render engine, and it's capable of producing, everything from our simple products, product renders, all the way to the film and animation sort of spectrum. So there's quite a lot that Max can do, and is of course the highest end render engine that we have available to us within the PDMC, and with the Arnold, it is fantastic to use. Nonetheless, in this category, Fusion once again crops up. So as you can see, a little bit of a trend coming along from the Fusion side. But Fusion also has its own sort of marketing capabilities. We have the ability to create very nice still renders, add lighting and materials and all the rest to our renders, and Fusion also has a presentation environment where we can do exploded views and little animation videos, etc. So once again, capable of use for marketing. Some of the enhancements in Max is, and the video is going to show them, but just to quickly highlight them, we've got the color management enhancements, we've got the global search feature, the retopology, and I apologize if I'm going to say that multiple times and get it wrong each and every time, but I'm going to try. Menu editor, and the USD enhancements for 3ds Max, as well as some Arnold enhancements. So we have a new Arnold engine that's been added there too. So when it comes to using Max, of course, as I said, Max is quite a beast, and a lot of these, I suppose, enhancements are for the other areas of Max that perhaps we don't as manufacturers necessarily use all the time. When it comes to things like color enhancements, of course, it's always going to be handy, as everything has a color at the end of the day. But it may not, we may not be using it into that depth, but of course, any of these enhancements just add into the overall experience within Max. So firstly, the color enhancements in IO, we now have some new color space conversion process operators that allow us to be, that can now be applied to data channels, which is quite handy from that point of view. And the new behavior for automatic option in the render output file with regards to our colors is also quite handy. We also have some bake to texture enhancements. So when we're working with complex scenes, what we do is we bake the materials onto the model, and that also helps with the rendering process later on, and also the general feel of the scene when we're working on it and looking at it live. There's been some USD enhancements. So for those of you that don't know, the USD is the universal file format that has been developed, and I guess allows us to transfer between multiple rendering products and sort of interface with each one of them. And the additions are that we can now have animations within the USD, or bring in animations from our USD files, as well as cameras and lighting, I believe it is. And when it comes to the retopology side of things, so the retopology enhancements are obviously just the way that the mesh conversion happens within Max. And some of those, the improvement is that the reform engine has been updated and now will work up to 8 times faster than it did before, which is quite handy. Probably more so on the gaming side of things. I mean, as you saw from my profile, I'm a gamer, so I'm quite excited from that. On the other scale of my my excitement, not necessarily for a manufacturing point of view, as we don't use a lot of mesh models within manufacturing, but they're certainly the global light sampling in volumes now is quite handy for all of us in our, every scene needs to be lit at the end of the day, so that can be quite, might end up being quite helpful for us. There's new search tools, so we now have a global search tool that we can use to search for certain things, anything. It's a global search tool, so quite handy to have that in Max. And of course, a new menu editor to add in anything we want into a contextual or extra right-click menu, which just will allow us to get more access to the tools that we need in Max. As for those of you that do use Max and have used Max will know that it's quite a tricky environment to navigate. So it's quite nice to be able to add in whatever menus we want on a right-click or at our will, which will come off quite handy. Then when we look at the tools for manufacture, so once again, and this I guess is the one of the areas of I suppose demystifying that I wanted to clarify. So with our tools for manufacture, of course, Inventor is once again at our forefront. It has everything we need from a design point of view, and of course, when we start to look at I've gone backwards instead of forwards. When we start to look at things like Inventor Cam and Inventor's nesting utility, we have the ability to nest our sheet metal. We can cut our sheet metal or apply toolpaths to our sheet metal within the Inventor Cam environment, and of course, all of our milling and machining can be done within the Inventor Cam environment. So highly capable on the manufacturer side. But what I would like to mention, and this is where it does get a little trickier, is of course, once again, Fusion. And this is where, and up until now, I don't believe that Fusion was necessarily a replacement for any of the other sort of fields. It may be in the future. Of course, Fusion's always adapting and changing, but certainly in the manufacturing environment, I feel that I would rather be on the Fusion Cam side of things than the Inventor Cam side of things. And I thought I would just maybe get to a point of sort of explaining where does Fusion actually fit in here, right? And I guess it fits in everywhere is the sort of answer at this point, is that as you've seen in each of my slides, in the marketing, in the manufacture, in the design, it fits in everywhere, right? And it can be used both side by side to the regular processes that we use, as well as it can be used or replace some of those processes if you wanted to. So I guess the question that may be occurring to you now is, can Fusion work for us? And why were we using Inventor? Why don't we just use Fusion? Well, that's a trickier question to answer. But of course, it almost certainly can work for you. It's about whether or not it's the best fit for you. And so there's always going to be something that any manufacturer could utilize within Fusion. But I guess it boils down to whether or not you, one, want to use it, and two, whether it fits the business and fits what your designers or machinists or marketing technicians are doing and need and require. So no, you don't have to use it, and we don't expect you to. And it's not, I'm not pushing Fusion at you in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying that it is capable, it is here, and we could look at it in a different light with regards to our manufacturing processes. So, as I mentioned, with Fusion Cam being my primary choice within the PDMC for machining, and just a little description and explanation as to why that would be the case. And the reason being is the machining extension. So within Fusion, we have the Fusion Cam engine, which is the Inventor Cam engine. It's the same sort of kernel that it's developed on, except in that Fusion allows us to add in the extension, the manufacturing extension to it. Whereas we have, I'm just going to get my laser pen, the manufacturing extension, which can be added as an extra. So technically, once again, not part of the PDMC as you buy it, but it can be added to your Fusion, and it will give us certain features from products, high-end cam products, I might add, like Feature Cam, Power Mill, and Power Inspect, which are, I suppose, the high-end cam products within the Autodesk portfolio. And just to highlight some of the things that that we've seen coming into Fusion, it's not necessarily me, you can access this too, is the things like from Feature Cam, we have hole recognition and pocket recognition. So what Feature Cam is very good at doing is grabbing set features on fairly simple models, if I'm being honest, and grabs those features and identifies them and adds toolpaths automatically. And based on geometry, it's able to add a selection of a tool size or the most appropriate tool size, as well as the most appropriate strategies to sort of clear that out as well as finish them. And that's where it's really, really strong. And as we can see with the hole recognition, Fusion is now able to pick up all the holes within a design and decide, whether it's threaded or not, and whether it just needs to be drilled, or it needs to be drilled and tapped, spot drilled, or pre-drilled for a countable, or whatever it's going to be. So quite a lot there in terms of identifying holes and not having to select them each. And you could argue that selecting holes isn't that bad, but any productivity enhancements, as far as I'm concerned, are fantastic. And then when it comes to things like the pocket recognition, so you may not have even noticed this, but within the selection tool, so we can still do our normal selection, click on a pocket face or whatever it is that we're selecting from that pocket, and still do the old school ways, but in the drop down, we have the ability to do a pocket recognition, which would allow us to set certain criteria to a pocket or within our pocket recognition to say any pockets within X size or X depth must then be picked up and added automatically. And what it'll do is then go and add all the pockets within your model that it can identify that meet those criteria. So selection-wise, quite a nice process to use, and I'm quite looking forward to where those sort of features and functions will go in the future. Then when it comes to the enhancements that they've added into Fusion from a PowerMill standpoint, and I believe these come from PowerMill, it's certainly a high-end CAM functionality. So for me, probably the feature that would make me choose Fusion CAM at this stage over just about any CAM package is the ability to trim toolpaths. So we can take a toolpath that may be somewhat overlapping, or it might run over, it might not have done as we expected, but it might be close enough to being perfect that we might just want to say, oh, well, this little area, let's remove that, and then my toolpath is actually how I wanted it, without having to go and sort of recalibrate the whole toolpath or add in new selections, perhaps go and add a 2D sketch or something like that to control it. We can just trim out the unwanted passes. So very nice little enhancement that they've added there. And don't get me wrong, these aren't all brand new, but if you haven't used the machining extension, they certainly are quite high-end features for our little Fusion CAM product. And then some of the multi-axis sort of stuff that's coming in from, once again, assuming PowerMill, is the ability to control where our tool moves and how our tool moves. So some of the 5-axis or multi-axis sort of strategies now have the ability to add in a collision avoidance, where we can add in a little sketch to control the route. So our tool must stay within that sort of sketch path and therefore needs to tilt to reach out of it and that sort of thing. And we can control things to help us with collision avoidance for various reasons, maybe something like an undercut or something to that effect. So quite nice tools coming into Fusion from a multi-axis point of view as well. When it comes to the Power Inspect side, I'll be honest, I haven't done too much on the inspection side, but of course there are some nice tools coming in there. So we have the new HAS machine tool connector, which allows us to connect live to a machine. As at this stage only HAS. Hopefully in the future we'll see some more machining brands coming on board, but for now we can directly connect our HAS machines to do live inspection, as well as of course various probing activities, and we can actually sort of live control our machines for inspection purposes. So just a little video now, just to highlight some of these changes and some of the things I've added here. Oh, sorry, some of the things I've mentioned here. So starting off, we have the ability, and this is now, well, it's in Inventor CAM, but it doesn't have the ability to assign a model to it. So we can define a machine, and what this does is it allows us to work out the machine's capability and kinematics. So we can choose, which head moves in the Z-axis, or where the machine moves in the Z-axis. Is it on the table, or is it on the turret? Is the turret the only thing moving? Is the head the X, Y, and Z, or is it the table and the X and Y, etc.? How far the limits of those sort of movements are. Can it move 250 mils either side, or can it move 500 in one direction? Those sort of increments and movements and the capabilities that we add in there then allow us to get our machining simulation. So as I said, we can also assign a model and actually build up our machines within within the Fusion environment to simulate directly on our machine. But also what comes out of the back end of the kinematics and the setup of our machine is, one, our post-processor then can take certain attributes of the machine, i.e. it moves in a B axis or A axis or C axis or wherever it moves, and it will then apply that to our post outputs, as well as, of course, our simulation will become more accurate with things like our statistics, where we have our machine times and such, as it will be using the actual machine's movements, the maximum feed rates, maximum speeds that it has, as well as the tool change movements. For example, if it needs to, if it can do a tool change in 3 seconds rather than the default 5, of course, our simulation time becomes more accurate. And then here we can see how I'm showing off the ability to trim a toolpath. So just taking a contour in this case, and then going and selecting a boundary. There are other options for selection, things like surfaces or faces that we can use to then go and trim from. But in this case, I'm going for everything inside my boundary that I've just sketched as an eyeballer. and you can see it trims off the toolpath in those areas, making it very easy to sort of control and trim out toolpath entities. And here I've gone and selected the delete passes option, where we can select individual single passes if we want to get into that level of control. We can select a group if we want, and we even have the ability to invert selection should we need to select more than we want to keep less than we have to delete. So we have a lot of selection tools there that can sort of help us select the multiple passes we want to delete, and then it deletes it pass by pass if we want to, and just removes that out. Whereas, in InventorCam, HSM back in the day, we didn't have any of this functionality. So it's quite good to see that it is only part of the machining extension. So I want to be clear that that's not part of the PDMC at this stage, but you have Fusion already, so it's just about accessing that extension as and when you need it. Right, so the final category, I guess, of the PDMC that I'm going to be looking into, or trying to half-heartedly explain, as it were, we have the the tools for collaboration, which of course this time is not Inventor at the forefront, it is Vault. And the reason that Vault is at the forefront is, of course, because it is our main data management solution. Now, Vault has two variations, Vault Basic and Vault Pro, and Vault Basic is the only variation that's on offer in the PDMC. But Vault Basic can then be moved into Vault Pro later on if you're wanting to get more serious or change things with your Vault and get some of the other sort of features that come with Vault Pro. I'll leave Adrian to that side of things. He'll be explaining all of the Vault Pro enhancements and the what's new, as well as where that fits in. And of course, Inventor is also, I would consider, a collaboration tool at this stage, as we have the ability to share views. Of course, we could be working on a server drive, so we could be sharing it just with normal networking capabilities. I do recommend Vault if that is the case, but that's just my opinion. You can get workflows off of your server drive. Nonetheless, we then have Fusion coming in, and the reason Fusion would be considered a collaboration tool is because, of course, it's got cloud capabilities. So within Fusion, we work on the cloud, and by the way, we can also interface Fusion with Vault if we're looking at products like Fusion Manage and such, whereas Fusion Manage can then be integrated with our Vault Pro only to then sort of integrate data and the workflows there. Inventor and Fusion now have a bi-directional link as well, so the collaboration between those two is there. It's live and ready to go. It was from 2 years ago, I guess. I think 2023, maybe 24. Either way, by 25, we have very nice streamlined tools to send Inventor models directly to Fusion and back again, and the ability to design an Inventor, push to Fusion and do our camming or any of the other things that Fusion can do, and get information back to Inventor from there as well. And I've just also shown their Fusion operations, which Cameron will also be doing a session on, so I'm not going to spoil any of those sides of things. I'll leave it to the wider team to cover those sort of things. And I guess as a final sort of note, and to sort of finish off my presentation, we have my final points, really. And I guess my final point is that the tech world is changing fast, as we know, with things like AI, generative design. There's so many different elements to the modern world that are coming into play. It's quite easy to get lost, and Autodesk is certainly on board with that. They're embracing all the different technologies that are coming out, the cloud technologies, the AI technologies, and all the other things that we now have at our disposal. And it's quite easy to be feeling overwhelmed. So I guess that is my exact point, is that we get surrounded with so much information. We've got so many products within our PDMC. We don't really know what we can do about it, and that's perfectly normal. There's a lot to go about. We have our day jobs, which is getting drawings into the workshop or manufacturing parts at the end of the day, getting things done, and we don't really have time to go about working out whether using Fusion Cam would be of benefit to us, or perhaps using 3ds Max as a marketing tool might help us within our workflows. And that's where I would recommend that you come talk to us. That's what we do. The side of this is that we are software people. We're not designing on a daily basis. It's our job to be able to tell you if something will be of benefit to you, and also equally so, if it's not of use to you, we're not going to beat around the bush. If something won't work for you or can't work for you, we're not going to lie to you about that either. So we're not just here to sell, we're actually here to advise. And don't get caught out. At the end of the day, we want to help you, and we will happily advise you on any of the products mentioned here or within your product collections, be it AEC or the MFG or the PDMC rather. We're happy to advise on these things, and that's where our function comes in, and that is the point that I wanted to leave you with. So thank you all very much for your time. Hope you have a good rest of your day.